When you think of the Milwaukee Bucks, you think of an absolute championship standard. You think of a ruthless, tightly knit brotherhood led by a multi-time MVP who works harder than anyone in the gym. But behind the closed doors of Fiserv Forum, the cracks in the armor are finally beginning to show, and a sudden, viral podcast clip just threatened to expose a culture of absolute lawlessness. For years, NBA insiders have whispered that something was deeply off with the team's internal discipline, but no one ever expected a current player to go public and completely tear down the illusion. The league is officially on notice because what started as a quiet locker room rumor has just blown up into an all-out public war between teammates. But what the cameras didn't catch was just how fast the locker room would divide over a single explosive accusation. This is where the story gets incredibly messy. Bucks center Bobby Portis recently sat down on his podcast, and instead of giving the standard boring athlete PR answers, he's decided to completely burn the bridge down. Bobby Portis exposed what he called an absolute staggering lack of discipline, holding the entire team hostage behind the scenes. He admitted that the culture had deteriorated so badly under head coach Doc Rivers that standard NBA rules basically stopped existing. According to Bobby Portis, players were treating mandatory team events like optional drop-in sessions. He revealed that guys were consistently late all the time, showing up to crucial film breakdowns whenever they felt like it, and straight-up skipping meetings without a single consequence. In an environment where every single minute of preparation can decide a championship legacy, Bobby Portis described it as one of the craziest, most lawless things he had ever witnessed in his professional career. But it was his shocking admission about the team's travel schedule that really exposed how broken the system had become. Bobby Portis admitted that things got so out of hand, players would comfortably show up an entire hour late to the team plane, enforcing him to realize he shouldn't even bother arriving until 60 minutes after the scheduled departure time. And that was only the beginning, because Bobby Portis was about to name the exact superstar driving this culture of unaccountability. When you're a two-time MVP, a finals MVP, and the undisputed face of a franchise, you wield an unbelievable amount of power. But according to these new, toxic rumors, that power might have completely corrupted the daily operation in Milwaukee. Bobby Portis didn't hold back when asked who the biggest culprit was behind the team's massive lateness problem. He straight up named Giannis Antetokounmpo, exposing that the Greek freak essentially operated on his own time zone. Bobby Portis explained that it became common knowledge that Giannis Antetokounmpo would just show up whenever he wanted, really, treating structured team schedules more like casual suggestions. In any normal workplace or on any disciplined sports team, a player constantly rolling in late faces heavy discipline, massive fines, or gets benched. But insiders claim that once the rest of the roster saw their absolute biggest star completely bypassing the rules with zero consequences, a dangerous mentality spread through the locker room. Bobby Portis admitted that he eventually stopped stressing the clock entirely, figuring that if the franchise player could just do whatever he wanted without the league or the coaching staff stepping in, then everyone else had the green light to do the same. But while fans online are speculating that this feud goes way deeper than basketball, one of Giannis Antetokounmpo's most fiercely loyal teammates was watching the podcast clip roll out in absolute disbelief. Enter Myles Turner. If you know anything about Milwaukee basketball, you know Myles Turner is the undisputed heart, soul, and ultimate protector of that locker room. So when these explosive allegations started threatening his team's reputation, you knew he wasn't going to sit back and stay quiet. Myles Turner immediately took to the Run It Back podcast to launch a furious counterattack against his own teammates' narrative. And his initial reaction tells you everything you need to know about how wild this situation has gotten. Myles Turner admitted that when he first saw the clip circulating on his feed, he genuinely thought it was AI. He literally could not believe a fellow Buck would go on a public platform and put that kind of toxic laundry out in the open. Myles Turner completely rejected the idea that the team was falling apart, firing back that the culture has always been absolutely great for them and that the entire story was being massively over-exaggerated to create cheap internet drama. He doubled down on his defense, claiming that in all his years grinding alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, he has never once seen the superstar show up late to a single team event. Myles Turner didn't just deny the rumors, he accidentally exposed a fundamental truth about how superstars are held in modern locker rooms. He openly admitted that superstar players do get treated differently across the league, essentially conceding that while Giannis Antetokounmpo might get a longer leash, the narrative that he was rolling in multiple hours late whenever he felt like it was nothing more than a giant lie. But Myles Turner wasn't done defending his MVP, and his next defense took a hilariously bizarre turn that only made fans question what was really happening behind the scenes. This is where Myles Turner tried to use a bit of humor to completely defuse the bomb, but instead, he might have highlighted a much bigger problem. He jokingly clapped back at Bobby Portis' timing claims by pointing out that Milwaukee isn't exactly Los Angeles or New York, arguing that there isn't even that much traffic in the city to possibly justify someone being hours late to the arena. But while Myles Turner tried to laugh it off as a logistical impossibility, he couldn't completely erase the heavier cloud hanging over the franchise: the Doc Rivers factor. Rumors circulating across NBA Twitter suggest that Doc Rivers' notoriously laid-back coaching style is exactly how a locker room loses its edge. Historically, critics have accused Doc Rivers of catering entirely to his superstar talent while letting team discipline completely slide. If Bobby Portis' claims that Doc Rivers refused to fine anyone are true, it paints a picture of a head coach who completely lost control of his players. This isn't the first time Doc Rivers has been accused of letting his stars run the show, and history suggests this usually ends in absolute disaster when the postseason pressure mounts. So now we are left with the ultimate basketball dilemma: who is actually telling the truth? On one side, you have Bobby Portis, a veteran who just arrived from a highly structured franchise and was clearly shell-shocked by the absolute anarchy he witnessed. On the other side, you have Myles Turner, a locker room fixture who is fiercely protective of his team's reputation and insists that the superstar has never been late a single day in his life. Neither of these stories can be true. Either Bobby Portis is wildly fabricating a story and completely throwing his coach and MVP under the bus for podcast clout, or Myles Turner is operating as the ultimate corporate soldier, putting on a brave face to cover up a toxic reality that has completely compromised the organization from the inside out. When teammates start actively contradicting each other on major national platforms, it proves that the internal alignment is completely dead. With the offseason looming and massive trade speculation already swirling around the franchise, this public divide forces us to ask a terrifying question about the Bucks' real future. At the end of the day, a championship culture is built on accountability. And right now, the Milwaukee Bucks look like a franchise that is completely compromised. If Giannis Antetokounmpo is genuinely operating above the law while Doc Rivers lets the rulebook burn, then this team is nowhere near ready to compete for another ring. But if this is just a massive misunderstanding or an over-exaggerated podcast story, then Bobby Portis has some serious explaining to do to his own locker room when training camp rolls around. The damage is officially done, and the entire league is watching to see how the Greek freak responds to being publicly called out by one of his own guys. But what do you guys think? Is Bobby Portis completely out of line for exposing the team's dirty laundry, or is Myles Turner just trying to cover up a toxic locker room culture that is actively ruining the Bucks? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Does superstar treatment destroy a team, or is it just part of the NBA? Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment to join the war zone down below, and we'll see you on the next one.